Here's a question for you. Have you ever made up your own language or tried speaking a language that you don't know just to fool someone?
Um, Hi everyone, welcome to In the Left State of the Mind, a podcast where Ashmita and Rojina share their experiences of moving from a foreign country to US. Me and Ashmita both grew up in different parts of Nepal, but we share a passion for exploring new cultures and meeting new people, which is why we moved to the US to pursue our studies and to build our dream life. In this podcast, we will be sharing our unique perspectives on what it's like to leave behind everything we knew and start a new life in a foreign land. From the ups and downs of adjusting to a new culture, to the challenges of making new friends and finding a sense of belonging, me and Ashmita will be sharing our honest and inspiring stories. We hope that our experiences will serve as a source of encouragement and inspiration for others who are also considering making the move or who are already living abroad. Join us as we journey together and discover what it means to call a new place home.
Yeah, I have actually. Like my own made up language. It doesn't make sense to anyone but only me. Like when I'm with myself, talking to myself, kind of like bits and pieces of all the language that I know. But yeah, I have.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast in the Live State of Mind. We're here back again with a new topic about a language barrier.
Yes. To all the new people and to all of our friends who are new to our podcast is called In the Left State of Mind, where me and Ashmita share our experiences and life advice of living abroad. And
Just to get the ground starting, what is a language barrier?
I think language barrier can be like not being comfortable and not knowing how to communicate yourself when you move to a new place, like a new country, and then not being able to communicate yourself because that's the language that you're not familiar with.
Yeah, right. So
Right.
just a conversation between two people who speak different languages
Yes.
and the misunderstanding or like stuff that you don't understand each other, like a difficulty in communication.
Exactly. Like our first language is Nepali, and then when we first moved here, even though we went to like a boarding school and we were taught English, but it's not something that we're familiar with, or like we don't think in English.
Right. Because we don't speak English in our household. It's just
Yeah.
like when we're in school, we speak that. But other than that, we speak Nepali, right? Yeah. So
Yes.
we did go through it a lot when we first got here. It was really tough subject that I feel like nobody talks about.
Mhm.
It is there. It's so common that it's always there that people think that it's not necessary to talk about.
Yes. And sometimes I wish like there would be one universal language that people can understand each other. Like, there's a lot of different languages that people speak here, like English. Even there's like different accents of English, Spanish, French, or I don't know. Yeah.
I guess like a universal language would be English. To get a little more idea, let's start with what causes the language barrier. Do you want to start?
Yeah. So the first thing that would be the cause of language barrier are like cultural differences, whether it be direct or indirect, like cultural upbringings, and then how we were raised, and it also depends on which part of the world that you are raised. If you are like lucky enough to be born in an English speaking country, like America, Canada, then it's harder. I mean, it's easier to thrive in this world. Whereas if you are born in like a third world country, it's
I hate that word.
I know. I was like, so
sounds...
that's why I was trying to be careful with the words.
Yeah.
But it's kind of harder to like know the language, speak the language, and then navigate through the cultural and linguistic.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think the other culture difference would be, talking about your point, direct and indirect. It means that like for some countries such as like America, Australia, and other like widely English spoken countries, direct, like it's like, what do you say it? Like it's preferred to be more direct. Whereas in countries like in Nepal, India, those stuff, you're not supposed to be direct. It's considered as rude.
Yes,
So that's also
okay.
like one of the cultural differences that cause language barrier.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yeah. Now that you're talking about it, it's true. Like, because our cultural upbringing is more kind of like a conservative,
Yeah.
where you're told not to speak up.
Totally.
So people here are quite frank about stuff, and then like. It's not, you don't come off as rude, but
Yeah.
for
They're
when
direct.
we-
They know what they want. They'll just
Yeah.
like tell you,
Confident,
which is good.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
standing up their ground. So that's also, I like that. Yeah.
The other reason why I think what I think is the cause is like the different learning styles that we have.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. For example, like to start off with, we have vocabulary. The vocabulary for people here and the vocabulary of people in Nepal is so different. Right? For example, it's like we have words like every time we go to the grocery stores, there's like a different name, right? For example, we call it eggplant here, whereas in Nepal it used to be brinjal.
Oh yeah.
And in Europe, it's not even called brinjal. It's called something else. So I don't know. So it's a different vocabulary too that makes it such a difficult. The other example would be
coriander and cilantro.
right, coriander, cilantro. Then we have lady's finger and okra. That's like so different. Like, how would you know? I didn't know lady's finger was called okra.
Me neither.
Did you know?
No, I didn't know that. And also, like, I want to add. So you know how those have you seen those flute? Like those musical instrument that you play
Yeah,
with?
basuri.
Basuri,
Yeah.
That's called flute or something.
Yeah, flute.
But then people here call it a recorder.
Recorder?
Yeah,
That's
so-
the first time I'm hearing it
So
too.
yeah, I'll tell you a story. So I was babysitting this family, and then both of the twins, that I family nanny for, they got this recorder, which we call it like flute or basuri, and then they were so excited, and they call me auntie, and I'm like, auntie, do you want to listen to us play the recorder? And I'm like, recorder, because in my mind it's like a device, right?
Yeah,
Like a
exactly. I thought it was like,
recording.
yeah.
And then they take out this flute, and I'm like, what? You call that a recorder? And then they start playing, and that's basri, that's flute. Don't you call it flute? Yeah, so that's...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other difference in learning style would be pronunciation. That's also a very big thing. What I was shocked about when I got here was so my friend has a little tortoise. What do we call it in Nepal? Tortoise, right?
Tortoise?
Yeah.
Yeah. Turtle?
But here they call it tortoise.
What?
I know, exactly. It's tortoise.
Tortoise. I've never heard that.
It was tortoise forever.
Yeah, tortoise.
But here it's the same spelling and everything. It's pronounced as tortoise.
Tortoise.
Mm-hmm. The other word that happened was herbs.
Oh, yes.
Here, herbs. So I was like, okay. And I feel like it's very like, it sounds weird when you're having a conversation with someone and then you just say like, oh, herbs, something. And they go, herbs? And like, you mean herbs?
Yeah,
it's just
herbal
like,
remedy.
yeah, so that's, I think, one of the big ones too.
And I think because I think in Nepal we are taught British English, right? Mm-hmm. So like color and then
the spelling,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then also with garage and garage,
yeah,
and then canal. So there's a lot of differences, and then some Americans like make fun of us, or I don't think they're tease us, but it's kind of like funny for them too and funny for us too.
Yeah, they will make you like say it again type of like, but we can tell at the same time like you're trying to make fun of me, like not in a bad way, but I see that you hear the difference.
Yeah,
I think.
But it's funny, Yeah.
But it's fine.
It's nice.
The other thing would be slangs. That is also one of the cause of the language barrier. When I first got here, I had a bunch of friends and they said something like, oh, we're going to take a rain check this time. I actually thought it was going to rain that day. And then I checked on the weather app and there was no rain.
What does it mean actually?
It means that you're just canceling the plan for this time, but we'll schedule next time.
Oh, okay.
Like, we don't know that in Nepal. We don't use rain check or anything like that. Or I don't know. Or maybe it's just me who I don't use it.
Yeah, me too. Like, or when they say like it's raining cats and dogs, or like
where?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or, simple words when I know. Like sometimes when people are talking and then they go off topic and they say, "Oh, sorry, I kind of went on a tangent in there," and I'm like, "What does that mean?"
I feel like those are just American slangs. Like hold your horses. It's like, okay.
Or like in the
I don't have one.
Yeah, exactly. Or like in the Bay Area, there's like a lot of slangs. Like I don't know. Can you name some? There's a lot.
So many. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't even.
But yeah, those are the slangs that we were not used to, and I would be like intimidated or like scared to ask like, oh, what does that mean? Because I thought I would make a fool of myself. But now I don't care. Like I just
we'll
ask.
get back to that later.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so we have one last point as a cause for the language barrier. What causes the language barrier? It's a lack of exposure,
which ties into our point of like different learning styles, and sometimes we are not too confident in like express ourselves, and then like I was shy to communicate myself even in English because I thought people would make fun of me or something like that.
To the point there was sometimes when teacher would teach something, and then because they spoke English like every day, it went by so fast that it was hard to catch sometimes. With also the vocabulary that they use is like tough.
Yeah, true. But yes, and then now we'll touch on the impact of like the language barriers like an individual can have when they're moving to a foreign country. Right. So what do you think?
So the first thing I think is it could affect your health mentally and physically. For example, let's say due to a language barrier, for me personally, I have missed out on so many doctor's appointments. Well, first of all, I did not understand the health system very well. So because of the language barrier, because it's so different, like the words, the terminologies, like you have to see the physician first and then you go referred. Those words are not so commonly used. So I would say for me, it impacted on my health. So that would be the main point for me. What about you?
I would say, like you said, it affects our physical and mental health when you're not confident enough to share your feelings or thoughts to the people here, especially in the beginning stages when you're moving abroad. You don't know anyone from your home country, so you're like kind of making friends and then like kind of keeping the things to yourself, not bottling up. So that also creates anxiety and then like physical pain or like, depression or feeling of loneliness. So that's...
And I think there's a lot of like economic impact as well, like not being able to get a job that you want just because you're not confident enough that you can say it outright or like present yourself in the way that you want to. And
like talking about the economic effects, like when first we are coming from like another country and then trying to get a job, we don't know how the financial system or like the job system works, so we're kind of afraid to ask our like salary or like kind of like present ourselves in that professional setting, which affects our like salary, and then they don't understand like what skills and abilities we bring to the table, so they kind of undermine us in a way, thinking us as foreigners, if that makes sense. So
and I feel like for me, I struggle when I had a couple interviews before, I struggle like when is the right time to ask this question. Because I don't know, because maybe in Nepal, like, such types of questions are not okay to ask in the first. But then here, like, when the recruiter calls you, for example, they'll just ask you, the same question that you would be hesitant to ask yourself.
Exactly.
So I think that is one of the economic impact that a language barrier has.
Yeah. And another could be, like, educational impact. Like, if you are a student in, like, university or college and then are having trouble, like, learning another language like English, it could definitely trigger or like affect your educational and career path.
Again, to the same point as before, there has been times when I don't understand what's going on, but then you're too hesitant to ask, so it definitely affects the education as well.
Same with like participating in like college discussions. Like I was scared that I would have like a Nepali accent and people would make fun of me, and then just that fear of what other people would think made me not want to speak up for myself in class, and then I would just let it go, like when I did not understand any educational material, so that impacted my grades.
I feel like there's also the time when like you have to present something in front of the whole class, and then a person like right in front of you goes and then gives such a good explanation of their project or something with like such a good English, and then you're just like hesitant to go, because it's like you might be judged, you're just using like a simple words rather than a larger vocabulary. So it kind of, I feel like I've been in that situation like you mentioned too.
And then that that there comes a point when we don't understand, because we all are from different backgrounds, we all come from different upbringings, and then we judge the American students here to ourselves, and I'm like, oh, like you kind of undermine your skills and abilities, and you think that they are better. I mean, we all are better, but the thought of just their presentation is really on point, and they have like really perfect pronunciation.
Yeah.
So that makes you kind of compare. And then
True.
Yeah, but now we're all adults, we're
Yeah.
still learning, so now we are aware of how we should overcome those language barriers. But for some people who are just starting out as students, international students, if you have that problem, then I would just say to not care what other people think, and not to compare, because you are, here, and that's
exactly that's a very big thing. So since we already talked about what causes it, what is it, and what does it impact, let's go on to like how to overcome. Like, what do you do personally to overcome that?
Okay, yeah, let's do that. How about you? Like, do you want to start?
I think sure. I think it's like you just have to be confident in what you say. Like, same to the point that you mentioned earlier, that not to think about what others are gonna think of you, because it really doesn't matter. So you just have to be confident. Like, let's say if you are not sure about like a word or not how to pronounce, just do it in a full confidence. Honestly, 50%, like, no, not even 50, like 80% of people will not correct you.
No.
There's always that 20% who's gonna criticize no matter what you say or what you do. But like 80% of people will just try to understand what you're saying and then move on with their life. So I think that's like one thing that we all should do, not focus on what other people say and just be confident in the word that you use.
Yeah, not be too much self-conscious on, your accent or pronunciation, and just, because you know how to speak English, right? So you know what you're trying to convey. So when you know how to communicate your thoughts, emotions, or like the point you're trying to make, then just do it. Don't be scared. Don't bottle up your emotions. Yeah.
There is always going to be people who's going to say something. I do want to give you an example again. So if you don't speak well, there are going to be people, oh, you don't know how to pronounce this? This is how you pronounce it, And to be really, really honest with you, it's not the Americans who criticize you. It's going to be people from your own country.
Yes.
I've had so many people say like, oh, your accent has changed so much, blah, blah, blah. Some it's like a good way. Some people say it's like a bad way, but who cares? It is what it is. Like, if you want to deal with it, deal with it. If not, then okay. I can't help it, right?
Yeah, you just got to deal with the haters.
That's a good thing to have haters.
Yeah.
All right, then for the second point, we have simplifying the language.
Yeah, like simplifying the words that you were trying to say, because I know for me, when I try to like give a presentation, or like even give like a public speech in Instagram Live or something like that, I stumble on words, and then I sort of like ramble, like and speak gibberish. But then I started like slowing down my thoughts and then like speaking slowly, and that helped me a lot. So even now, like if I am too nervous or excited or scared, I just blah 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 blah, and I don't.
I think why that happens to us is because since our first language is not English, that we tend to like think of it in Nepali first, and then we tend to convert it after, right? Sorry. Okay. Oh.
So
Sorry, we just had a little bit of thing going on. But okay. So for the third point, we have practice active listening. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I feel like that's a skill, life skill that you, if you want to be a speaker, like anything in life, being an active listener is like a good skill. So that means like giving your full attention to anyone in a conversation, like you and me. Like when you're talking or speaking, I'm not thinking about anything else. Like even when people are giving presentations, sometimes what happens is like you're waiting for your turn, and then you kind of like prepare for your presentation internally instead of listening to them.
Yeah.
You know how those in class discussions, they tell you, okay, listen to this presentation, and then you have to ask questions. I never used to ask.
Same, exactly,
So
that's when like things like repetition of the same sentence would happen. That's something that you want to avoid. And also it's a good habit to make the other person in front of you who's talking, to make them feel like they're being heard. Right? Yeah. So that's basically what active listening is.
Yeah.
And for the next point, we have paying attention to body language and facial expression.
Yeah. I feel like that's one thing you should do when you don't know the other language. Like when, so the family nanny for the mom, the grandmom, when she's talking Chinese, I'm learning Chinese, but some bits and pieces I don't understand, and then so I look at her facial expression or like body language, and then her gestures or hand gestures, and then I understand. So I think that's also something that you should pay attention to when you're learning another language.
Right. I think that is very important too, because like let's say you don't understand some language very well, and they're talking to you, plus you're not paying attention to how they're emotionally reacting, and imagine they're saying something sad and you just laugh.
Yes.
Because I have done it when people are just like, not in this scenario, but when people are like talking something and you don't understand, you have already asked the person like 3 times to repeat the same thing, and then you just go like, yeah, just like, what if it's not like, but I look at them like, are they smiling at the same time, or are they like sad? If they're sad, I'll be just like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's true.
But you don't want to do the opposite, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a skill when you're having conversation with people, like connecting with people, and just like being there, present in conversation, like eye contact, body language, just like acknowledging that you're listening. And then,
and I think like just replying to it, or like giving some kind of like a feedback, that would help as well to show that you are listening. So
true.
And I think like the other thing would be just being honest with them. Like, you just tell them like, hey, like English is not my first language, so I might have to ask you like to repeat the sentence again, like especially on the interviews and stuff. You can just throw it out there that you're not from here, so English is not your first language, and then you can always like ask for again.
Yeah, exactly. Just like know that where you come from, and like if you don't have knowledge about what they're talking about, then just ask them beforehand. Just be open and honest. Just like, don't assume that you know everything, and then don't be scared not to ask, because some people don't ask, right? Because they think they will feel rejected or something like that. But
I feel like these things will take time, definitely. We also have been through those stuff almost every day. That's how we learn. But you have to start somewhere. Like, you have to be comfortable asking questions. If you have any.
Exactly. And something I do, like, I put myself in like uncomfortable situations, like whenever like we are in a new country, we're trying to make friends, and then we sometimes are scared to go out because you're like, oh, like I can't relate to any of their topics, conversations. But then when you start putting yourself in those situations, like going out with your friends who are from here, and then trying to hear like how they talk, what language, or like what values are they talking about, and like being more like active listener in those conversations, and like trying to participate. You don't have to have a say, but that helps.
And I think like in the situations like this, like being you is so important. Like you shouldn't be copying someone who is like who's talking something like that you want, and you just want to be like them. So you shouldn't just be copying like that. Right?